Are we live? Usually I wait about 10 seconds because this is a live video, unedited and raw. So I'm gonna drop some truth bombs on you guys and give you some unique information about what it's been like to live off the grid. But it's live, so it's unedited, so anything could happen. And I'm heading down Cougar Alley here. But I got my dogs, my weapons, and it's still daytime. It's not dark yet, so I think we got some stuff going for us. And I got my two defenders here. I got River and Willow. Hi, River. Hi, Willow. Willow say hello to Willow in the comments. She took her first 2 steps between me and Nicole, walking between us today. She did it. And we had a big celebration. The top 10 mistakes that I made along this off-grid journey, and I think if any of you are watching our show because you're interested in living closer to nature, whether you're in the US or whatever, please tell me in the comments if you can hear me so I know it's working. And tell me what country and what city you're in. I'm interested. How old you are, stuff like that. I'm interested. I always read the comments and wonder what's going on. I'm gonna spin because I don't want to go far down there. I'm gonna lose cell signal. A lot of sun, so my hair turns blonde. Top 10 mistakes that I made. So one mistake is right over there, and it's the Yurt compound right there. You guys see it? And right now you can see that it's in the sun, but it's June. And it's whatever time it is, 8 o'clock, something like that. Almost bedtime for the girls. And this is also, this live kind of gives me a chance to connect with the girls and give Nicole a break before bedtime. Everyone's saying hi to them so you guys can hear me. Put a comment there so I can respond to your comment. And anybody that does super chats, I really appreciate it. Listen, first mistake that I made was with the Yurt. I put it in the wrong location. So if you're interested in living off the grid and you're gonna do it at a raw land property, and you've got the ability to pay for the raw land property, however you're able to do that, which is difficult for some people, it'd be worthwhile to learn 2 things. What does your property have an abundance of? And so for me, it has an abundance of wood and fresh water because there's a well that's like spring water, and also has an abundance of rain. So those are my abundance of fish because the ocean's nearby. So a fish, wood, rain, and an abundance of fresh water. And what I would do is I would make a list and say, those are the things that I have an abundance of. So if you believe in yin yang theory, that means that you suck in other ways. So I suck with sun. Let me use different language. I have a shortage of sun. I have a shortage of warmth, and I have a shortage of dryness, and I have a shortage of the ability to do alternative energy because of those things. So the first thing I did that is wrong is I put the Yurt right there. Let's go back and I'll show you. I thought I was being smart. I would recommend, I should have, because we rolled up a van on the property. And when we did that, we lived in the van. I had retrofitted this Mitsubishi Delica to be a little camper van, and we lived in that. And I thought I was able to learn about the property by living on it in the van. But that was impossible because when we got to the property, it was like this. It was as thick as that. And every square inch of real estate that we have at the property, we had to chainsaw our way in. So what became the challenge was, it was very challenging for me to gain information about where the sun, where the rain, where all the spots of the property go. And I was really looking forward to living on the property in the van and building the house slowly after I learned about the property. So what I did was, as we went into the property here, we found that on this lot, we bought 2 lots originally. And this lot, we found a little entry point that was the least treed, the least forested. And the reason why it was the least forested is because we found an old logging road that was probably built, several generations earlier. And then I ended up meeting the person who converted these properties from logging to residential, and they told me, this guy named Don, he told me that he took like 6 feet of rock off this old logging road when he put in this little logging road that goes to nowhere. So he took from this logging road to get to this logging road about 6 feet of rock. So I uncovered the old logging road, and I found that it had a confluence over there. There was actually 3 logging roads that came together, and it was a very open area. And I figured that, I said to Nicolle, I said, this is a really rocky, stable, hard part of the property. And everywhere else that we would walk in the property, we walked every square inch of our property, and we would sink sometimes up to our hip in mulch, and it became very wet and soft. And I was afraid that if we would, the one thing Nicolle told me was, don't let them fall asleep. You gonna sing for us? You're singing, interrupting the live, and Willow is falling asleep, which is the one rule. Willow, don't fall asleep yet. We gotta do it inside. I was afraid if I built the yurt platform in the forest, it would sink. That was my biggest fear. And when you go into the forest, it's very difficult to fall trees in the forest because there's nowhere for them to fall. They hit each other. So you've got to be kind of skillful at first to open up an area so that you have room to fall the trees. So I figured, hey, this logging road has only got salmonberry and baby alder on it because it's such a hard, rocky area. It's the only area that we can see a little bit of daylight. And I was concerned, I was confident that the yurt platform would not sink at that logging road, maybe 80-year-old logging road confluence. So we cleared it, and you can go back and watch this video. Go back and watch our first episodes. You'll see Nicolle and I clearing the baby alder and the salmonberry, and all of a sudden we had this big open area, and we put the circular yurt platform there. Now fast forward, we started living in it, and we started realizing really quickly that that was a mistake, because all those trees are on our property. We have thousands of trees on the property, and our acreage goes that way toward the ocean. And that's also facing south. And so the sun is over there. So outside of June and July and maybe a part of August, the rest of the 9 months out of the year, the sun drops below those trees and the yurt's in the shade the whole time. And what that does is it makes the yurt more wet and more cold, and it requires us to rely on the wood stove more. So we have to have the wood stove on more to dry it out in there so that we have no mold. And the yurt never gets to be warmed by the sun, and so we use more wood. And I can't store the wood over there because, or I do store the wood over there, but when I do that, it's very wet. And so I have to put the wood in the woodshed completely dry, because once it's on the woodshed, it does not get any more dry. And now these babies are totally asleep. Oh God, I'm in big trouble. Nicolle is gonna kick my ass all over the place. I got 2 twin girls and they're both asleep. Here, watch your neck. Oh no, I'm in big trouble. I'm sorry, Nicolle. I know. My voice just put them to sleep. They just had dinner and now I'm in big trouble, because now Nicolle's gonna have a tough time putting them down. This was supposed to be a break for her. Now I just made a big mistake, crucial mistake, damn it. I'm gonna definitely be getting nothing for the next couple weeks. All right, so that was a big mistake. And to this day, the yurt probably would be a structure that we would keep long-term. I'm like holding them now, I can hold them up. The yurt would probably be a structure we would keep up as a guest cabin long-term if it was in the sun. But once we have the shipping container house finished, we no longer can keep the yurt because it's in the shade. And there's gonna be nobody over there living there running the wood stove. So the forest will take it back. The forest will mold it, the forest will rot it, the sun is so healing and cleansing and good. So that was a big mistake. So if you're gonna go live off grid, I'd make a suggestion that you should go and really be on your property for at least 2 or 3 seasons and think about, what is your property lacking? And for me, my property is lacking sun. So that means we should put the property where? Or put the house where? In the sunniest spot of the property. So we did that with the shipping container house. We learned from our mistakes and we went to the shipping container house. We put a good 100 feet of easement or more off the logging road so that we're tucked back on our property, and we put the container house in the sunniest spot we have, which we utilize this logging road that is kind of goes to nowhere. It's kind of an abandoned logging road, and it creates a gap in the forest. And that gap in the forest allows the sun to come in. So now that the sun is high in the sky, everything's in the sun. But in the winter, fall, and spring, the container house and the greenhouse will be in the sun all the time because it is farther to the north. And when I throw solar panels up on the top of that container house, they'll be up nice and high. And all those trees behind the container house, those trees are in the north. And so when I pick trees to mill on the sawmill there, you see I'm milling wood back behind me. You guys can see that? That's a Doug fir. When I'm milling wood on the sawmill, I'm taking that wood from these trees that are in the south. Because every time I cut one of those trees down, it gives me a few more degrees of sun, especially coming up with the autumn and winter and spring. So we also put all those windows there on the container house so that the sun floods in the house and keeps it dry, and we'll use less wood and less reliance on the wood stove. Also a lot more dry in there. So if we leave and go to the tropical property and somebody's here and we have cameras on and somebody's here living here, they will be able to enjoy a more dry and more independent house because of its location. But then we went to build there and it was very soft. So when you guys go watch the shipping container video, we took a month doing the foundation, and we paid the neighbor who has the big excavator. He was a nice guy and he came over and he did the work for us. And we took the extra time to dig way down there, dig all the native dirt out and keep it on site, of course. But then we threw rock down there instead because now it's not wet and it's hard. And so this last couple of years we've been gone at the tropical property having babies like a humpback whale. Humpback whales, you know, they migrate across the Pacific to have their babies in the tropics. Then they come back to the coast for feeding. We do that, apparently. We came back and the foundation is exactly how we left it, with no roof on. And once the roof's on, be much less water coming in. So the foundation is perfect. It's exactly how we left it. All the big concrete blocks are still level, and I'm about to complete the house. We're about to enter into the sunny month where I can have a full month to finish the whole roof and start framing the inside so that by August 15th, we're in there full time. And then you see back there, the wood shed back there. See the greenhouse and the container house? We'll call it the sea can house. See the greenhouse and the sea can house? In the middle is the wood shed. I'm going to extend that times triple. And now that is also in a very sunny area. So if I do put wet wood on the wood shed, that's going to be able to be okay because the sun will continue to dry that wood while it's on the shelf. All right. Second mistake I made living off the grid. This is an Arizona mistake. I used to want to be off grid in the city in Arizona. That was my goal. I was like, I'm going to be a city dweller in a regular neighborhood. I got a half an acre. Go back and watch Jake Mace, the vegan athlete. You can go on YouTube, type in Jake Mace, vegan athlete, and you get my vegan athlete videos. And I was a gardening guy. And the goal with Arizona was to harvest all the rainwater I needed in the desert. Big mistake. I had about 250 fruit trees on that half an acre packed real close together. And nobody realizes that the last 6 months to a year that I was there, my water bill was over $1,000 a month. And I justified it thinking, hey, I'm growing my own food. It's okay. But it's actually not okay because that was really expensive. If anything were to happen and I didn't have money, I wouldn't have had enough water to keep my edible landscape going in Arizona, in Phoenix. So what I should have done in Phoenix is I should have only planted date palms. I should have only planted fruiting mulberry. I should have only planted moringa. I should have only planted olive. I should have only planted mesquite. I should have only planted a ton of date palms. I just already said that. I should have only planted citrus. I should have only planted jujube. I should have only planted ironwood and palo verde. These are all trees that are edible medicinal that are drought tolerant. And then I put 5 feet of wood chips everywhere. That would have held the moisture in, and then that would have been a much more desert appropriate edible landscape, and which would have required possibly no water. And I also should have had maybe 2 or 3 acres that then I could have really harvested a lot of water in flood zones during the monsoon. So that is a mistake. Please learn from my mistake. No matter where you live, whether it's temperate rainforest or desert of Sonoran desert or tropics, you really got to know what grows there. Don't try to grow mango trees in Canada. You know what I'm saying? I'm growing pawpaw in Canada, and I think I'm going to make it work. Don't try to grow, soursop in Canada. You know what I'm saying? And don't try to grow cherry trees or apple trees in the tropics. The tropics has their own trees. Like the tropics has soursop, and has coconut, and has banana, and it has papaya, and it has lychee, and it has, sapote, and it has jaboti kaba, and champadoc, and durian. But I would never think to grow those trees here at this property, because this property has apple and quince and cherry and plum. And I'm seeing that fig does okay, and my pawpaw looks like it's gonna fruit, and monkey puzzle, which has beautiful edible nuts in it. So when you're trying to live off the grid, I think a big part of that is growing your own food, and please grow food specific to your area. If you wanna grow tomatoes, you might need a greenhouse, like over there. If you wanna grow your own food, you might need, like in this area, we have a lot of berries, a lot of mushrooms. We can get things to work here like sunchokes and potatoes. And if I'm in the tropics, I'm growing sugarcane, and I'm growing pineapples, and I'm growing tomatoes year round, sweet peppers year round. I'm growing cassava. Yeah, they're snoring. You want to see? Because they're like using my arm as a pillow. I got big hands, I can hold them up here, and they're sleeping. Oh, your face is on the strap. Here, I'll help you. Yeah, they're snoring. It's pretty cute. Hey, they turn 1 year old pretty soon, in a few days. It's already been a year. And Willow took her first 2 steps today. So there you go. So those are a couple mistakes I made, is growing the wrong fruit trees, the wrong food, putting the domicile in the wrong space. And then let's talk about another mistake, which is electricity. In the tropics, we have a really easy time with solar, because if it rains a couple days in a row, it's going to be balanced by sun right afterward. Here, I'm trying to make solar work. And so I've had to do a few things to make that work. I've had to put the solar panels up higher. I'm gonna get them up on that 2-story container house. I'm gonna get them in the sunniest spot of the yard. I'm gonna also put up a wind turbine. I also have to adjust myself. So in the winter time, or the late fall or early spring, I have to stop using the fridge and stop using the freezer. Now, the power of this area is that it's 32 degrees most of the time. So in the fall, the winter, and the spring, I could unplug the fridge and just put it right outside the front door, and now it's a fridge without electricity. It's actually great. And for about 6 months out of the year, my freezer stays frozen if I keep it in the shade. So the container house, if you notice, there's a container way in the back that's in the full shade all the time, and that's gonna be where we're gonna have our little bit of our shaded cellar. We're hoping it will stay cold and dry back there. So electricity here is more challenging if you want to be off grid. So I'd recommend, maybe if you are in an area that's higher north and more temperate, like this one, you might want to rely on wind turbines. You might want to rely on your wood stove. You might want to have the ability to can and jar and dehydrate, because you won't be able to rely on your fridge and freezer as much. Right now I have an abundance of solar, and so I don't even think about electricity right now until about August. But the tropics has a different problem. The tropics has no wood stove. And so if you don't have sunny days and it's very wet, it's a rainforest there, and things tend to mold easier there in the tropics. So what we're noticing is that it's harder to battle mold off the grid in the tropics. It's easier to battle mold here in the temperate rainforest because of the wood stove. The wood stove keeps it hot and dry. These are other mistakes that I made. I tried to force my will upon the property, having a fridge and freezer all the time. And then the first couple of years, I was running the batteries dry all the time. Now my batteries are full all the time, and I have 3 different battery systems run by an abundance of solar panels that I'm going to put up there on that container house right there. Because these power poles you always see in our videos, they're not active. They don't do anything. They don't have a transformer. They're not active. The other thing that is difficult living off the grid is how you're raised, is the temptation of money. I really would love it if, how do I say this? I feel blessed to have the ability to buy things with money. But at the same time, money becomes a crutch that forces me to be tempted by things in the store. And I think that if you're gonna live off grid and you're not off grid yet, you should fill your time with learning how to pressure can, how to pickle things, how to make jam, how to dehydrate things in different ways. There's different ways to dehydrate things. If you have some money and you have an abundance of power, maybe you get a freeze dryer. You can freeze dry things. If you have a wood stove, get a dehydration area next to the wood stove so you can dry your mushrooms and dry your herbs and dry your vegetables. And definitely get a smokehouse if you have an abundance of wood where you can smoke your own fish. These are things you should be, and then sourdough. Nicole's power right now is that she's very good with sourdough. We lost our starter in the transition to back to this property, and luckily a neighbor had one that they gave to us, so she's back on the sourdough game. I just stuffed myself full of sourdough. And I think sourdough and then the wood stove, or the pizza oven that we built, is very powerful because it allows us to feed ourselves without any electricity. Is anybody still there? I can cut some wood with my axe, and I can light a fire in the pizza oven. And Nicolle has been fermenting, growing some sourdough starter, and then I can use the pizza oven with wood to make some amazing bread, and then partner that with some amazing salmon from the ocean that I caught, or a lingcod that I shot with my gun, or some scallops that I picked off the bottom of the ocean. And then on that sourdough, put some fresh homemade jam that we picked from berries, and saute that fish up with some mushrooms that we picked from the forest. And the only thing that we're lacking is how to find abundance of oil, but we'll talk about that later. So I'm trying to get to myself where I don't need the store. And another mistake I made is having an abundance of money in your bank account is a temptation. It's a temptation to use that money towards things that will not get you off grid. So if you're by the ocean, you need to use some money for a boat. If you're in the forest, you got to use some money for a wood stove and for axes and for a shelter. If you don't have any money, you have to work in the city to afford your raw land property. And I don't know how to say, one person that I'm really thankful for in my life, which I also think is a very successful, cool person. I can't tell you who he is, but toward the last couple of years of my gardening adventure in Arizona, he attended my garden tour, and I want to say we had a friendship. I think he's a very cool guy. I wish we had a larger friendship. And his name is Brian. And Nicolle and I wanted to go and woof and volunteer on farms in different countries. And I was working the deal for this property during that trip. And so we almost have been off grid for a decade now. And I realized that I wanted to have more than 4 acres. We wanted to have 8 acres. And the 8 acres was out of my reach financially. I was a little bit short, even though I had a lot of money saved up. I really was able to, I wanted to pay cash for the property. It's very difficult to find the ability to, yeah, lard, not oil. I really, lately, if we go and have the farm down the way that we support that does grass-fed water buffalo, they do water buffalo bacon. And when we cook the water buffalo bacon, it makes bacon fat that then we jar up and we use that as our cooking oil. But we don't have the water buffalo here. That costs money to go to the farm down the way and support them. So I'd love a way to find, I mean, and in the tropics, I have an abundance of oil with coconut. I can do coconut oil. Here, you know, I do save the bacon grease, but I wish that we can sail between the properties so I can like stock up the sailboat with like 2 years supply of coconut oil and then sail across the Pacific to this property and then use the coconut oil that we made here. That'd be cool. Or somehow, you know, get fish oil from the salmon. My point is that he learned about what we were doing and volunteered on his own. He said, you know, why don't I just send you the little bit extra you need to finish the properties off? And I was so touched. You know, I don't think he realizes how I was in tears and crying. And I was just so touched. He didn't ask for any terms or any payback. He just thought it was so cool how I wanted to garden, live off grid, and do this adventure, and how close I was. And to him, the money was nothing, as far as I understand. But to me, it was everything. And that I had 95% of the money, and he came in with the last 5% as a friend. And that was a long time ago, before COVID and all that. And I just really was thankful to have that friend to help me with that last 5% I needed to make the dream possible. And you have to sometimes have some blessings like that, but also have some good friends that help you. Work your ass off, put the money aside for your raw land property. But then if somebody's gonna offer you some blessings and some generosity, be thankful, but you know, be humble enough to accept it. And now, because of that friend, we had this whole adventure. I mean, it was such a small amount of money in the grand scheme of things, but to me at the time, it allowed me to call the realtor and say, deal's done. And then this off-grid journey started. And now we have babies here, and we have a family, and we have multiple properties, and we survived COVID, and all this stuff happened. I really was thankful. So one mistake I've made is I've always tried to do things kind of alone. Maybe because my family kind of broke up. My parents weren't around from the age of like 17 on. They were too busy with their own divorce and life. And I've really always felt like I've been on my own. But people out there that have a circle of friends that discuss things and meet to strategize about things and support each other is so powerful. So one mistake I would definitely want to remedy for my kids is keep a very loving and tight and dedicated social circle of friends that help each other. And if you're able to help them or they're able to help you, I think it's very powerful. Some other mistakes we made is I came to this property here, this one, and the ocean was going to be such a big part of the life here. But I hadn't grown up with boat life like a lot of people have, you know. I just built this today. I bought some rocks here. We're going to build like a herb garden here in front of the greenhouse full of blueberries and rosemary and thyme and chamomile. And then I made an extension to the land here, and I put down that row down there, all edible elderberry and ginkgo biloba. So another mistake was I said I'm going to learn about boating for the School of Hard Knocks, and I bought a used boat that didn't really pan out. I got taken. Luckily, I found a great company that wanted to see their boat in our show, and then we had the Striker inflatable that to this day has been our favorite boat. The Striker, it's an inflatable boat, and it has about a 50 horsepower on the back Tohatsu outboard. Great. But that original boat, used it all but maybe 10 times, maybe a dozen times. It was an inboard big Chevy engine that I didn't know how to repair. It didn't have any kind of top speed. It's very slow, gas guzzler. It made the trip across the ocean multiple hours to get here. And it ended up being okay because we pulled it out of the ocean and we used it as an apartment to house a friend for 6 months. But it really was a waste of money. We didn't need to spend that money. That would have been something that we could have bought lumber for the Yurt platform because we weren't milling our own wood at that time. So the other thing is, I would recommend, a big mistake would be to have an ego. A lot of times when you go to a new area, especially a raw land property, there might be people around already that have a different attitude than you're used to. And if you write them off, you won't get the benefit of their knowledge and their local expertise and maybe their help. And so showing up at your raw land property to live off the grid, my arm is dying, with zero ego is very important because it will allow you to stay humble and accept knowledge and help from people. And when I first came to this property, there was a couple people that I didn't understand their social vibe. And now they're some of the most helpful neighbors we have. So having an attitude that, hey, I'm gonna go live off the grid, I'm gonna go to this raw land property, I'm going to be coming upon some very difficult, painful, stressful things, people, circumstances, I gotta stay humble. That's important. That's a mistake. I would have loved to have come here with more of an inclusive attitude. Even though I feel like I'm pretty inclusive, I feel one of my powers is I don't burn a lot of bridges. I tend to, only a couple times in my life have I ever had to lay the law down. And most of the time I keep all my circle of friends. And to this day, I have some great friends. Another mistake that I made was one mistake that I made was trying to do things alone that I probably should have apprenticed first. Let me not tell you the details of that, but whether it's building, whether it's fishing, whether it's hunting, whether it's preserving, I would highly recommend not using the internet at all. I would highly recommend seeking out people that were experts already, whether it's with a class or a seminar, or just find a Miyagi in the field that you're going to need and apprentice that person humbly. You know, learn self-defense, learn about weapons, learn about guns, learn about fermentation, learn about gardening, learn about building, learn what hardware and fasteners to use, learn how to preserve wood. Because a few things I did, like for instance, I built a few things at first, and you guys saw us built the Yurt platform, used pressure treated wood, preserve the ends with a good chemical sealer. But then I started getting into natural building. And I built a few things that are still holding up and still good to this day. They still are doing pretty good. But I would have done differently if I would have had the knowledge I have now. I would have used different hardware, different fasteners, different screws, different nails, different building techniques, different ways to preserve the wood. And I'm giving the C-Can house and infrastructure all the benefit of that experience. But I've taken some stuff down that I felt was unsafe because of how I built it initially. Then I would definitely, one mistake that I don't think is a mistake, but it's kind of a hardship of modern life, is not having family very, very close on both our sides. I think something's happening with first world countries. If I can use that term, is that a bad term? First world countries? Like Canada, United States, a lot of countries in Europe. Something's happening where the zeitgeist, like the vibe of the time, is to get a mortgage, get a house, prioritize making a lot of money, go on an adventure, get out there away from your family, and get a career and all this stuff. And if you go to a lot of Latin American countries, a lot of Asian countries, they don't do that. The family unit stays close. And I got to tell you, I do not like the zeitgeist of the age. I don't like that mentality. I love the mentality of the family stays close. Do you know how much better my life would be if my brother was here? He's about my age. We have no contact, and I've tried everything. Do you know how much better my life would be if I could work with my athletic brother he's got the brains? I always had, I mean, we're both the same. We're both brothers, 2.5 years apart. We're both the same. Mentally, physically, we're the same. But I've always felt like I've had his number physically and he's had my number mentally. You know, I could use some mental right now. Do you know how much better my life would be if my parents were here right next door and they were living in the yurt and could help with the twins and Fox? Or if Nicole's family is a great example. Nicole's family is so tight. They are billionaires in terms of their family unit. They get together for holidays and meetups and reunions and Thanksgivings and Christmases, and they just have such a tight bond. But even with that, they all live in different cities and different places, and they're scattered around everywhere. And for everybody to get together, it takes a lot of money and effort to fly to a central location to meet up. How much better would it be if everybody was just living at an acreage down the way and they had their 5 acres and we had our 5 acres, and we can have the kids all together and the grandparents all together. I am so jealous of Asian countries and people that I know that have this, and Mexican friends that have this, that have big families, and they're tight and they're close. They live close together. And the kids that got to be 20, 25 just inherit a piece of land that their parents already had for them, and they can just hit the ground running. I'm so jealous. I want to give that to my kids. I want to make sure that I'm raising my kids in the way where we're great friends, but we all have respect when they get to be in their 20s. And we're doing enough interesting things, and we have enough interesting life that they want to keep their kids and their relationships together with Nicolle and I. I would love it if, like, let's see if it happens, okay? When I'm 60 something, and my kids are in their 20s, I would be feeling very successful if they wanted to raise their families and have their life be close to Nicolle and I, like in proximity. So a big mistake that Nicolle and I have is not having family like close in terms of location, close together in terms of location, because it's very tough to be FaceTiming and calling people and not have them just down the way. Yeah, like look at me. I just saw some comments coming in about that. I'm 40 years old when I had my first kid. 40 years old. I've been married 3 times. I first got married at 25, and the girl was amazing. Like, the girl was smart and intelligent and accomplished and beautiful, and like we should have definitely had 3 kids by the age of 30. Like, we were a genetically and, you know, age-wise great couple. Why didn't me and that girl have 3 kids? Well, you know, you could say God or nature. I'm very happy that I was able to do it the way I did it, and I have River and Willow and Fox and Nicolle. But I didn't know who Nicolle was when I was 25, and I should easily have had kids when I was younger, because I would have been 45 with a 20-year-old. And as it is now, I'm gonna be 60. I'm gonna be 60 with a 20-year-old. So one mistake that I've made in my life is I see some dads right now who are my age, 45, that have a 20-year-old. I'm jealous. I'm extremely jealous, because I know how strong and athletic I am right now. And if Fox was 20 and I could keep with him with my body I have now, I'm very afraid. I'm very afraid at who I'm going to be at 60 with, or let's say 65, and I have a 25 and a 23 and 23-year-old twin girls. That scares me, because I don't want to be an old man when they're in their young 20s. I would love to be 45 or 50 as a grandpa. That'd be great. I would be who I am now, and the kids would be 25, having their first kid. I think that's very healthy, and I would be a great young grandpa with tons of energy. Who am I going to be at 65 when Fox is 25? Let's say Fox gets to be 30 years old before he has a kid. Or let's say he's like me. If Fox is 40 years old when he has his first kid, I would be 80. I'd be an 80-year-old before I was even a grandpa. And I really feel like something happened in society to make me extremely hesitant and scared, like extremely, to have kids in my 20s. When that shouldn't have happened. Like, society should have made it where, like, hey, I met a girl, we got married, we ran a business together, we were a cute couple, she was a cute girl, she was highly educated, more educated than me. We should have had babies in our 20s. And I'm glad we didn't, because I love the babies that I have. I'm glad we're life, but there could potentially have been 3 to 5 kids I would never meet because I was so afraid to have kids at that time, partially because I felt like I had no money to have kids, and I should have kept going after the money and financially been more stable. Big mistake. All right. I had a glass of wine before this live video. I just sucked a bug down my neck. Oh my God. Anybody else eating buffalo gnats for dinner? I had a glass of wine before this live started, so it kind of makes me talk about it too much. But I really think that's enough for you guys. Those are some of the mistakes that I made living off the grid. The mistakes that I didn't make was living off grid. I think living off grid, buying something which is land and property and building your own stuff on it, big success, big success. So I wouldn't change the fact that we did this. And I don't know what I did to deserve Nicolle, but I did something right. And I was able to convince her to come with me on this, even though we'd only been together for a year and a half at that time. I did something, maybe, I don't know. I've been around thousands of people running martial arts and gardening businesses. And maybe I was just socially very convincing to her to make her come with me on this journey. And I think now we've got it to where we both are doing this together, and we are kind of excited about the future very much. Anyways, I'm gonna go back in there and get lectured for putting these babies to sleep. I hope you guys get some benefit from this. And any of you who are, oh, sorry, well, okay, we're gonna go back. Anybody thinking about living off the grid, learn from our mistakes, learn from our successes, and make a couple of videos along the way so I can, and then give me the link so I can see what you're doing. I'm gonna head out here, guys. Hey, go to the comments and leave a nice comment on the video, and I'll come back in when this video posts and I'll respond to your comment. See ya.